HomeTrak Telephony Timekeeping. What is telephony and how does it relate to your business? Telephony provides the ability for your field caregivers to sign their orders off over the phone. Automatically updates the schedules with the actual start time and the hours worked by the caregiver. Provides the ability to view whether a caregiver has called from the client's home within minutes of the scheduled time. Let's look at the benefits of telephony. HomeTrak telephony is 100% accurate. If we cannot verify that the caregiver was at the client's home, we will not automatically update the schedule. Can eliminate paper timesheets. In many cases, insurance companies have approved HomeTrak telephony as an accurate substitute for paper time cards. Eliminates manually entering in actual hours worked and start times because the system does this for you automatically. Streamlines payroll and invoicing. Since the schedules are being updated immediately after completion, you will have more time to process payroll and billing. Alerts you when caregivers have yet to show up at a client's home. HomeTrak can alert you when you are in the office or email your cell phone or pager nights or weekends when a caregiver does not show for a visit. This will allow you to deal with any late or absent caregivers before the client or family member calls you. Helps to create a disciplined workforce. The system will discipline the caregiver to be on time and stay for the authorized period. Is a powerful marketing tool. Clients are impressed that you can actually watch caregivers checking in and out from your office. Let's look at the benefits of using HomeTrak telephony compared to third-party telephony vendors. One call to one company for all your support needs. You won't get, "Call the other company, it's their problem" issues. Consistent user interface. Since telephony is completely integrated into HomeTrak, the look and feel of the telephony system will be consistent with the rest of the program. One bill from one company. HomeTrak will provide you with detailed call records to track your usage. No integration problems or compatibility issues. Because telephony is completely integrated with the rest of the program, you will not have to worry about different systems being compatible or one vendor updating or changing the software, which may have adverse effects on the other software. View schedules and calls in the same screen. You will not have to toggle between two different software packages to view your information. Every aspect of HomeTrak telephony is handled in HomeTrak. No importing or exporting of information. Third-party interfaces require you to import and export information. This can be a slow process and is prone to problems. This is eliminated in HomeTrak. No additional phone lines or hardware to install. All you need to run HomeTrak telephony is an internet connection to your office. Your caregivers will call into a call center with a toll-free number provided by HomeTrak. Competitively priced. HomeTrak telephony is competitively priced compared with third-party telephony vendors, even with the fully integrated advantages. Let's look at the mechanics of the telephony process in HomeTrak. The areas in the process are the client's home and telephone, the main call center, HomeTrak, which processes the calls and billing, and also your office, which downloads the file and processes the call. Let's look at each process a little more closely. The caregiver should only be calling from the client's home. When your company is set up to use telephony, you will be provided with your own toll-free number that the caregiver will call. The caregiver will call into the system as soon as they arrive at the client's home and then just before they leave. You will run a report through HomeTrak, which will provide your caregivers with a card of instructions to follow when they call into the system. Each card is caregiver specific and may change depending on the options your company chose when telephony was first set up. When the caregiver calls from the client's home, they are actually calling into a large call center. This call center uses very sophisticated hardware to read telephone numbers similar to that used by fire departments or police stations when you call 911. This will allow non-published or call block numbers to be read, which will greatly increase accuracy and automation. The call center has hundreds of telephone lines going into it, so the chances of a caregiver getting a busy signal at peak call times for your business is virtually eliminated. The call center takes every precaution possible to make sure your caregivers will always be able to call. The call center has backup power generation capabilities in case of power outages, as well as fiber optic loops into the facilities. This is the most critical part of telephony, because if you have a failure in the remainder of the call chain, either through your office or our server, your caregiver's calls will accumulate at the call center until such time as they can be processed. The call center will send a text file to its FTP site every 5 minutes. The files will accumulate until they are downloaded. HomeTrak will then download the raw text file and process it down to agency-specific files based on the toll-free number each agency receives. This is also where your calls are kept and where the invoicing is generated. HomeTrak will bill you on a monthly basis based on phone usage at the client's home. HomeTrak will now do 2 processes. All of your files are backed up on our server in case your server loses any data and has to reprocess, as well as post your agency-specific file to the FTP site. Again, we have a lot of backup capabilities at our office. Your office will download the calls from the FTP site and process them. Because of the call center, you will not be required to install or maintain any extra phone lines to your office. There is no extra hardware to install or maintain in your office, such as a more powerful server or expensive caller ID cards. The only necessary equipment you need for telephony is access to the Internet. At first glance, this entire process may look like it may take some time between the actual call of the caregiver and the records processing at your office. The system is designed to process calls very quickly. In most cases, you should be able to view the call within 7 to 8 minutes. The most time it should take to view a call is 15 minutes. Now let's look at how your system will process the calls through HomeTrak. Each individual start or end of a call will be added to the Open Calls database and then stored in a specific way. Here is an example of 2 open calls in a simplified open call database. One of the first steps is to look for any clients in the system that have the same phone number as the one the caregiver called from. If the system finds a match, it is proof that the caregiver did indeed call from the client's home. The client ID and name will then be populated. HomeTrak will now sort the start and end of calls by the client, caregiver, dates, and times. If the client ID is a match as well as the caregiver ID, and the start and end date and times fit certain criteria, HomeTrak will join the start and end of a call record with the proper data and delete the other record. We now have a one-time card record with the verified client and caregiver, the start and end date and times of the 2 calls, and the call type of the work. Here we have the call from the previous screen and a sample of the schedules database. HomeTrak will now search for the schedule that is related to the telephony call. Again, if the client and caregivers match and the start and end time parameters are acceptable, HomeTrak will update the schedule with the actual start date and time as well as the actual hours worked. HomeTrak will now move the telephony record from the Open Calls database to the Completed Calls database for a complete history of all your calls. When the start and end calls are signed off correctly, the system will be completely automated and your schedules will be updated shortly after the end of a visit call is made. There will be times, however, when caregivers will forget to call in at the start or end of a visit or call from a cell phone or made an error when keying information. Since HomeTrak cannot make assumptions when updating schedules, if there is any problem with a telephony call or it doesn't match a schedule, the telephony record will stay in the Open Calls database until it can be fixed up manually. You are viewing the Open eTime Card section found in the Telephony section in HomeTrak. It is here that you will manage and correct any records where HomeTrak found discrepancies and could not update the related schedule. These discrepancies could be anything from the caregiver not calling in the start or end of a visit to not having a schedule entered into the system to update. HomeTrak provides you with many tools to fix up your open e-time cards quickly. To the right, we have the time card information window showing you the problem with the call as well as other call information. By progressing through the 6 steps to fixing calls, you will categorize the calls and break them down into manageable numbers. When you edit an open call record, you will be presented with many options that will allow you to fix up the call quickly and accurately. This includes suggesting the probable clients or caregivers based on existing schedules or showing you schedules matching the known information. You can view all of your completed visits by going to the Completed e-Time Cards tab. It is here that you can choose any date range and view your completed time cards. You can also run your completed visit report by choosing this option. Because Telephony is completely integrated with HomeTrak, we can view the screen on a regular basis to alert us to any client scheduled for a visit and whether a caregiver has or has not signed in yet. This screen will refresh every 2 minutes. When the caregiver does call into the system, the type will move from a no call to a called in, which means that it is a schedule in progress. Once a caregiver completes the schedule, it will be marked as being completed. You can set up many flexible ways to email different people when the caregiver fails to call into the system. During business hours, you can set up different email addresses to alert you to a caregiver no-show shortly after the scheduled start time. We can also set up email alerts, nights and weekends for our on-call staff, allowing them to receive no-show text messages on their cell phones or pagers. This is an extremely powerful feature as it allows you to be proactive with your caregiver no-shows and becomes a great marketing tool for your company. If you have questions about the features or power of HomeTrak telephony, please contact a HomeTrak sales representative.